Welcome to the Mills Knows Bills podcast. My name is Mills Bender. I'm the founder and CEO of Mills Knows Bills, where we help you, variable income earners, master your money in 90 days. The point of this podcast is to help you make the most of your fluctuating income so you can stop living paycheck to paycheck, pay off your debt twice as fast, and get on track toward reaching both your personal and professional financial goals. Now, as I continue to grow my team here at MKB, you may have some guest hosts from time to time. However, our goal does not change. Whether we're bringing in a guest speaker, having an in-depth conversation about our personal finances, or talking about a topic that is of interest to you, our goal is to help you master your money. Welcome back to another episode of the Mills Knows Bills podcast. I'm your host as well as CEO of MKB, Mills Bender. And with me today, I have a really good friend of mine, Brandon, who's also a UCF alum. And we met back in August now. Yeah. So just a few months ago, but we have a lot of similar interests, which has allowed our friendship to progress faster. I am really excited to have Brandon on the show today because he's going to talk a lot about one of the biggest pain points that business owners struggle with, which is their people.
Absolutely.
So, Brandon, can you take a moment, introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, first of all. I'm Brandon Robertson. I am local to Winter Park here. Went to UCF, just like Mills, and I own a staffing and recruiting business here in the Maitland area for the past 5 years. Been in the recruiting industry for about 15 after graduating from UCF in 2010. So it's an industry I love. I really kind of fell into, but fell in love with. And more importantly than that, I'm a father of three and a husband to my beautiful wife, Alyssa. That's my most important job. And then, secondarily is my business. So, thanks for having me.
So you said that your industry kind of found you. You didn't really find it.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So I graduated from UCF in 2010 with a finance degree and minor in real estate. So I thought I wanted to get into the big bank world, try to make it in that. So I ended up getting a job as a personal banker at Wells Fargo, wearing suits I couldn't afford every day. And I ended up finding out that the people that were kind of at the top of my branch were, making 50, 60K a year, but been with the company 30 years. So it's like the trajectory was not what I wanted for my future. Right. So I had friends that had gotten into other various industries, one in which was the staffing and recruiting world. He was doing really well, working for a local company, Jackson Therapy Partners, out by UCF. So he's like, hey, I'm doing well over here. I'd love to work with you if you want to interview. So ended up interviewing there. This was back in 2010 as well. Got the job. Didn't really see myself as a sales type of person. I'm introverted by nature. So I always thought it wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. I thought sales was kind of beyond what I wanted to do. So ended up getting the job at Jackson Therapy Partners. It was a very kind of rigid sales structure, making 100 plus calls a day, cold calls. Wow. So it kind of just threw me into the fire of sales, which for a young person can,
you don't want sales and you're doing sales all day.
You're thrown into like, hey, you're going to do the most sales, right?
So, and like the worst kind, cold calling.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. So usually, one of two things happens there. You either, get into that and you're like, I hate this. I don't want to ever do this again, which is majority. Or you go, I'm a tough person. I want to learn something new. I want to try it, see if I can figure this out. And that's what I chose. I chose to kind of dive into it. And I had a really good career at Jackson. I was there 2.5, 3 years, President's Club, very young in my career.
Good for you. Taught
me a ton. It really did. I think if I didn't have that initial making 100 plus calls a day, having as many one-on-one meetings and sales trainings as we did, I don't think I would be where I'm at. So I'm very thankful for it. But looking back, it was a lot for sure. Yeah. So, from there, I went to another company where I tried to help a friend of mine get a staffing company, off the ground, and ended up not working out. And then I went to the job I had prior to starting mine. Altus Jobs here locally as well. Helped build that company up. I was probably the 6th hire there. Built it up for 5 or 6 years to about 55 employees, closing about 6 or 7 million in revenue a year. I was the director of sales. My business partner now was the director of recruiting. So we kind of logical next step, started our company in January of 2020, which looking back is a crazy time to start a business.
Well, you had no idea
right.
what was coming.
Looking back, you're like, wow, that was 2 months prior or before the pandemic, right?
Or you know what? It was the perfect time to start it.
Good.
You had 2 months of ramp up before the chaos.
Very optimistic way to look at it. Yeah, exactly. So
I only say that because I gaslit myself because that's when I started my business.
That's so funny. So we started, and my wife was also pregnant with our second child when we started the business, and we had just bought our house in 2019. So it was a lot to undertake, and she was a stay-at-home mom. So a lot of moving parts, but so January 2020 is when we started the business. The first 2 months were, like you said, a ramp up time. Yeah. Pandemic hits in March, and we're like, what do we do? Everything's kind of on pause. So, we kind of found our way in a few different industries. Obviously it was the two of us. So we were, kind of flexible enough to go where the money was, not necessarily have to go with what we had been doing prior or what we're used to. We could kind of go in industries that, could serve us, and what we're doing. Cause, we thought, maybe naively that we're good. We can recruit in any industry, which I believe if you are good, you can. Yeah. So we did that, and we ended up finding our way in an industry that was doing really well during the pandemic, the mortgage industry. Yeah. And it was pretty insane for the two of us for all of 2020 and all of 2021. So it was a lot, but it was great. It was what we needed. It really gave us the confidence to know we can do this, because as business owners, the doubt creeps in a lot. Right. And it's especially on the hard days, and I'm lucky enough to have somebody to lean on, my business partner, Kyle Murphy. And, we kind of leaned on each other, found our way in the industry that we were in, the mortgage industry. And, it just kind of snowballed from there. Like it's been a really awesome ride. I can't believe 5 years have gone by. Like it's crazy. It flies by.
It does. It does. Especially when you first get started and you're like, I can't even imagine where I'll be 5 years from now. And you read all the statistics about how many businesses fail after 5 years. You're like,
exactly.
I'm part of the positive side of the statistic.
Yeah. Well, it's like businesses that fail in the first year, right? Yeah. It's like more than half. And then I think 5 years, like 80%. So to be on the good side of that statistic's a great thing. That's right. Awesome. But I think from here, it's like, where do we go? Like, how do we keep doing things the right way, keep growing organically to get to wherever we're trying to get to? And when we started this company, we started with the idea of, we're not trying to get rich quickly. We're not trying to take over the world and hire 50 people. We want to grow with each other, and we want to grow with the right like-minded people for a long-term period, right? Yeah. And if that ends with us selling or staying with the company forever, that's fine. Yeah. Whatever happens. But we want to do things the right way, which is our company's integrity consulting agency. We're trying to do things with integrity and the right recruit the right way, having our internal relationships handled the right way. So just kind of have that mindset and concept kind of be the umbrella over everything. So
I think that's something that a lot of business owners struggle with too. You know, everybody has their own goals for their business, right? Your goals are going to look different from mine. Sure. They're going to look different from Carrie's, everybody has different goals, but you touched on something that I think a lot of people will brush under the rug, which is, I don't really know how to scale or grow, or it grew differently from what I had anticipated it to look like. Sure. And part of that and part of scaling is the hiring process.
Yeah.
And so we work with a lot of blue collar businesses, many of whom listen to the podcast, and their biggest pain point right now is hiring.
Sure.
And we can go into all the different areas of why, but the biggest one is, society has been pushing a college education rather than a vocational degree. There has been a lack of desire for that. And so now there's this gap of service workers in comparison to the demand. So there is that gap, but the biggest problem is, I was like, one of my clients, for example, he has more work than he can handle. Mm-hmm. It's not a work problem. It's not a revenue or cash flow problem. It's a finding the right person problem.
Absolutely.
And so what would you suggest to somebody in that capacity who's looking to, to grow, but they quite literally can't?
Yeah. And I think it's the staffing industry as a whole kind of gets a bad rap, in my opinion, that there are a lot of used car salesman type staffing people out there. But my advice would be to find a staffing partner that can align with your goals. Mm-hmm. I think it's so important because, a business owner's number one thing is to bring in revenue, right? Mm-hmm. It's to, gain clients, gain ways to add to the revenue. Mm-hmm. It's not always the recruiting side. So having a recruiting partner you can rely on, one that you can trust, one that aligns with your goals and knows what you're looking for, it is super helpful. There's a lot of companies that, just are out there to make a quick buck. Mm-hmm. And, that's definitely not the way to go. You don't want somebody that just takes your job, puts it on a job board and waits for people to apply to you, because that's what you can do, right?
So talk a little bit more about that, because not to demean the audience, but I know that there are listeners who'd say, what do you mean by that? Put it on a job board.
Yeah. So when our clients have a job, they're usually putting it on their socials, putting it on their website, putting it, wherever, Monster, Career Builder, Indeed, all these sites, and waiting for, people to apply and reacting to the people that apply. That's what talent acquisition teams internally, that's what HR teams internally do. They're in a reactive type of position because they're waiting for who's going to apply to me, right? Yeah. So the way we approach it and the way I've always taught to approach it from a staffing and recruiting company standpoint is I'm cool with everything you guys do internally trying to fill this job. I want to be a value add to you. So what I'm going to do, I'm not posting this job anywhere. I'm not even posting it on my website. I'm going to go after the people that are happily employed, that aren't looking for a job, that are currently working, that I have to,
convince,
kind of aggressively go after, for lack of better words.
All that cold calling worked out.
Exactly. So everything you do from a reactive standpoint is great.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a lot of proactive stuff, right? So I'm going to go after these people that you would never know existed unless you had a partner like me. Yeah. So that's how I can justify paying me our fee is if you hire somebody from your reactive searches, that's fine. That's great. And it's going to happen. It does happen. But maybe you get 80% of your people from that and you get 20% from the proactive stuff through a staffing partner, if that makes sense. So a lot of staffing firms will want to be hired and do the reactive stuff, which where's the value add there? What's the purpose of bringing on somebody that's going to be competition for my internal talent acquisition team, right? So our whole approach is we want to work in conjunction with your internal team. We want to work together. I'm not trying to compete with them. I want to get people they've never seen. So that's kind of a concept that is foreign to a lot of business owners, and a lot of companies that we contract with, explaining that concept to them is foreign because their whole mindset, and maybe it's just how the industry's progressed over time, it's turned into a reactive type of industry. But that's why we're trying to change the narrative on it. from a 7-person company.
Listen, that's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
To me, it's common sense, right? Why would you want to do what they're already doing?
Well, I always was told, even when I was in college, that when you're employable, you're a lot more employable.
100%.
You know,
right?
you're getting experience still. You are adding value. You have something to talk about. And so anytime I ever wanted to change roles before starting my own company, I would apply for them. I wouldn't just quit.
Sure.
Because then the power's still in my court.
Correct.
A little bit.
And you're a lot more sought after.
Yeah.
You know, we have a lot of UCF interns,
Mm-hmm.
shout out College of Business, that work for us. And they get really excited when they see an unemployed candidate, right? I can place them quick. I can make quick money. When we send that to our clients, the first thing they ask is, in a market like this, when people are so sought after,
why are they unemployed? Yes.
Why? It doesn't make sense. A good person would be retained, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
Which kind of leads me to another point. It's harder to do what we do because when we get people an offer, the company wants to retain them. They're going to try to counteroffer or keep them.
Yeah.
So our success rate's less than 50% because a lot of people get retained and they'll throw money at them to keep them. But back to the other point, unemployed to us is not good.
No.
You know, we call that a green light candidate, right? Like they're like, yeah, sure. What do you got? I can interview tomorrow. It's like, yeah, give me like a time. Like I want like a 10 to 12, not an all day thing, you know?
Yeah. Even if you are available all day, just say.
That's another hot tip. Yeah. If you are available 7 to 7.
Don't say you're available.
Say 10 to 12, 2 to 4, right? Because you don't want to be extremely available for sure. But so that to us is a red flag. And we try to be the lens for our clients because we know they're going to think it's a red flag, right? So the unemployed, the super gung ho, I'm ready to interview tomorrow. That's a red flag to us. But to somebody new in our industry, that looks like an easy placement, right? Yeah. But you're completely
so your competition
internally,
views it as an easy place. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just not. And so our target candidate is the employable, right? The person that is working, that has been with the company for 7 to 10 years. They have their licensure. They were, hard to get on the phone. Yeah. They had like this 15-minute window that they could talk at the end of the day because they were in meetings all day. That's like gold to me, right? The harder it is to get in touch with these people, the better, because these people aren't applying to the postings. They're not talking to other recruiters, right? So if we can break down those barriers, we know we've eliminated 95% of the competition before we even speak to them, right? So.
Yeah. And you said earlier that the reactive side of trying to fill a role might get 80% of the applicants, but what you do, the proactive side, is 20%. But I mean, I would guarantee that the 20% tends to be higher quality.
Correct.
And you said you have less than a 50% placement rate, success rate, because they are retained with their current employment.
Correct.
But how often do you have to replace that role if you do take them? Like, what's your success rate in terms of retention if you do bring somebody over into one of your clients?
As far as what?
So let's say you do get somebody from another company, you place them with your client.
Yeah.
How long do they tend to stay? What's your retention rate on that?
And that's the hard part of it. I mean, we're working in the human business, right?
Yeah.
We're not selling vacuum cleaners that can, we know have a warranty or whatever they have, right? It's a person with free will that can do what they want. I mean, we've had people last years, 5, 10 years with companies. We've had people last a couple weeks and they weren't who they said they were. But the underlying factor there is we're not in the, hey, we're trying to make a quick buck business. We have a guarantee on our candidates that we place. So there's a 90-day kind of introductory period. But if it's 95 days, 100 days, 120 days, it's like, what? I'm not trying to make this one placement and lose a client over somebody that didn't work out, right? So I'm there for the long term. Our clients know we're there for the long term. So I'd rather help a client out on something like that rather than run away with the money. So, but to answer the question, I mean, we vet so heavily on the front end.
Yeah.
That we kind of eliminate all those red flags, or try to as much as we can. Obviously, there's some that you never.
At the end of the day, people are great at lying.
People
sometimes.
are great, and unfortunately, right? They're great at lying, and I think it all goes back to the relationship you have with the client.
Yeah.
And they know it's not you that's lying, and you're like, hey man, sorry, I'm gonna fix it. Right. Yeah. That's all I can do from that perspective is help you fix it. But so much vetting is done by our team. Secondarily, and more importantly, so much vetting is done by their internal team, references, background checks, interview with 2 or 3 folks, meet the president, do all this stuff. So between all that, if it still doesn't work out with somebody, that's kind of an outlier to us. Yeah. It's like, we did everything we could to know that this person is what they say they are. And if they aren't, sorry, but we'll try to fix it, So.
I think it's great though that you're filling a need that a lot of business owners, especially those who are visionaries, they're not great at the hiring or interviewing process.
Yeah.
Frankly, that's one of my weaker areas. Sure. I've gotten better over the years because I've had to, but the second I want to bring somebody new onto the team.
Yeah. Well, think about it too, from a perspective of if you're working, my favorite person to work with is the president of a company. I don't necessarily want to work with the HR team because they do see me as a threat.
Yeah.
I try to work on how they view me, but sometimes it doesn't work out. They still will always think of me as a threat, but I want to work with the president, the department head, the person that's feeling the pain of not having this person in the role. Right. Yeah. And whoever that person is, the president, department head, their job is not hiring. And when they're working on recruiting and hiring, they're losing time on what they could be doing, which is probably revenue producing.
Yeah. Rainmaking.
Right. So another part of our pitch is, let me take that off your plate.
Yeah.
Yes, we're expensive.
No.
Yeah.
You have you're an investment.
Yeah. But they see the price tag of it, right? Yeah. In recruiting equals an expense. Yeah. Unneeded, unwarranted expense probably in their mind. But when you can get them to understand the value of what we're bringing, hey, we're giving you all this time to go win millions of dollars of projects, right?
Yeah.
You have so much more time to do what you're good at. And recruiting maybe isn't what you're good at. And there are some presidents that are good at recruiting, and those probably aren't for us, right? And that's okay. But the ones that aren't good at recruiting, that's where we step in and say, hey, we'll take that off your plate for a nominal fee, right?
Yeah.
Like a very small, non-expensive fee.
I do think it is nominal though. When you're looking at, from my perspective, I look at what I would pay you to hire my next role. That would take how many hours off of my plate a week. Also, the process of trying to find that person, interview them, maybe even train them if they're not as highly skilled as somebody you could find could be, right? The training process is a lot shorter, which means I get an ROI on their salary a lot sooner. So I look at how much more revenue can I make in that time frame.
Yeah. And getting that, that's the right way to think about it, in my opinion, but getting business owners to think that way is a bit of a challenge. But once they're, they own the business or they're running the department for a reason, right? And once you kind of peel back the onion, they can see the grand scheme of things. It's like, okay, no, we want you to go win, or in some cases not lose work, because in the industry we're working in, if they don't have X amount of people on the projects, they will lose work, right? So we're helping you not lose millions of dollars and gain millions of dollars. So paying, tens of thousands or whatever it is, in the grand scheme of things, it's apples to oranges, right?
Right. And you're a flat fee for the first time frame. It's not like a monthly recurring.
It's just a flat fee based off a percentage of the salary. It's in industry standards, like 20 to 30% of first year salary, not including bonuses. So for round numbers,
I don't think that's bad at all.
Yeah. So if $100,000 person, you're paying 30K for that person. And getting somebody, hopefully that's going to be there for 5, 7, 10 years and add millions of dollars of potential revenue to your business. So
I think that's fair. Especially
I would say,
you're like, you don't have the hair to flip like I do, but I did it for you.
Exactly. So it's it was interesting getting into the business and kind of learning it from the bottom to where I'm at now, and seeing how it's perceived. Not only, I think externally it's perceived a certain way, but internally it's seen as I don't know, almost like a bottom feeder sales job. Like it's like, sales recruiting, there's companies out there that kind of throw you into, the wood chipper, and they're like, just figure it out. They hire as many young people to make 100, 150 calls as they can and try to weed them out that way. But it's for one, it's a very lucrative business from a sales perspective, but it's also one that I think if you can gain the tools to be good in staffing and sales and staffing, you can transfer it to literally any industry, any sales role, because you're, like I was saying before, we're not selling a product, right? We're not selling, something that people need. We're selling people basically. We're trying to sell ideas to candidates, right? So if you can persuade and convince people, that's what sales is, right? And it's learning how to have conversations with people. And to go back to my prior point, I'm introverted by nature. Like I'm not, work in the room at a networking event type of guy, right? So
I beg to differ. That's how you and I met.
That's true.
Although it wasn't a networking event. There just happened to be networking.
Yeah. So, and there are some people that are like that, but I don't like to refer to it as like, in my mind, sales has such a negative connotation. Yeah. Like to me, I'm just having conversations with people.
Yeah. And if you can connect the dots, great.
I'm trying to build relationships. And if it works, it works. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, I'm not forcing anything. No. And the reason that is because people that like you want to do business with you, right? So I want somebody to say, man, I talked to Brandon, I talked to Kyle months ago, and I wasn't ready at the time, but that was a good conversation. I think I'm going to give them a call back because now the time's right, or whatever it is. So, yeah.
And I think timing is critical, because I would assume some of the misconceptions somebody would have when talking with you is, I just can't afford $20,000 or $30,000. Sure. That might be true right now, might not be how you want to prioritize your spending right now, but you're going to get to a point in your business where you can't afford not to pay it
100%.
Because your time is better spent elsewhere.
Yes.
Your effective hourly rate is better spent rainmaking or finishing out a project or whatever it may be.
Correct.
And so there will come that point. And so we have these preconceived notions as humans, not even as business owners, that things are just finite, but we're humans. Things change. Our environment changes. Our business changes. And so you're going to evolve into a point where $30,000 is a drop in the bucket 100%, in comparison to the return 100%. That you get.
I think getting clients to open their mind to that concept is where we have become so successful. Like we have our group of probably 10 clients that we know are going to do a ton of business with us, right? Yeah. And then, we're contracted with quite a few others, but we're trying to convince them to open their mind the way the others have, right? So it's it's ever changing too, because that concept I was talking about before with the internal HR competing with us, that's kind of how it's viewed across the board. Like, why would I hire you? I have a talent acquisition team. It's like, yeah, I totally get that, and I think you should. Like, you're a 500-person company, you should have a talent acquisition team, you should have an HR team, but I can add value still, right? Like I could still add value to what and if it's one placement a year that the talent acquisition team can identify, I think that's a good valuable ROI, right? Yeah. Like that's still a great relationship, right? Absolutely. But to your listeners and to business owners, I would say vet your staffing partners prior to signing contracts with them. Some just try to get you to sign their agreement without even talking. It's crazy. But talk to many companies, ask them what their process is. Ask them, are they putting these jobs on job boards? Which I'm not saying it's completely bad to do. you can still get, good candidates.
That's level one. We want level two.
Yeah, exactly. But just vet them. See what their process is like. See what type of candidates they're going after. Because if they're just going to feed you unemployed people or people that your talent acquisition team is already sending you, or people that through the grapevine, whatever, that there's no value there, right? You want something that's going to bring you exponential value, right?
Absolutely. So at what point do you find business owners needing somebody like you? Is it a revenue size? Is it a company size?
I'd say our bread and butter is probably a 20 to 100 employee firm. At revenue, it's hard to tell because the industries are all so different.
Yeah.
I'd say that I love to work with small, medium, mom and pop type firms where you can really grow your relationship with the president or the owner, whoever it is. So that 20, I'd say at 20 people and looking to grow is where you're kind of like, all right, I'm being pulled in so many different directions. I need some help here. Then when you get to above the 100 employee mark, you're usually running into a lot of HR departments, talent acquisition teams. But there's absolutely need for us there too. But I'd say our niche, our bread and butter is that 20 to 100 person firm that's going to maybe make 2 hires a year. We're not looking to make 5 placements a month with our clients, right? It's like, we want to find the right people. And we work at our best having a very specific need that maybe has like all these specifications, qualifications they need, and us going out and finding that perfect person. We just did it for a client out in Cleveland, and it was like both sides are just like so elated. That's where the satisfaction, the joy comes from on our end, because there is a lot of, it's not a glamorous or sexy job, right? Like we're making phone calls in an office. I'm wearing basketball shorts most days. So it's not like, we're, whatever, but that is what brings the satisfaction to it, is getting a text from a candidate you place saying, man, I would have never looked for another role. This is perfect for me. Thank you so much. It's changed my life, my family life. And on the flip side of that, hearing the same thing from a client, man, this role's been open for 2 years. We couldn't find anyone. You guys found the perfect candidate in 2 months.
That's
like
insane.
That makes us feel great, right? So being able to marry those two is what kind of keeps us going. So
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So is there anything that I've not asked you about your business that you feel like the audience should know?
I would say we've been talking a lot on the client side. On the flip side of that is the candidate side.
Okay.
Candidates speaking to recruiters about opportunities.
Sure.
And I would say be open-minded to it, but the same way I was telling clients to vet recruiters, I think candidates should vet recruiters just the same way, right? Because there's a lot of recruiters out there that sell ghost jobs just to get your resume, to like pump your resume out to 10 companies, right? And then hope for something to happen. So know who you're getting into business with. On that side, it's like having having a good recruiter is like having a good realtor.
Yeah. On
the candidate side, they owe no money, right? They don't have to pay anything to us when they do get placed. So it's a free service. I would just say stay open-minded to the idea of what's out there, because I feel like good candidates that are in a good job with good tenure tend to think, oh, I'm happy. Why would I leave? Right.
Yeah.
And I think if they're open-minded to the concept, you could see something out there that, maybe there's a better commute or better bonus program, or I don't know, they have chicken wings on Fridays or whatever you like. There's, money, of course, like there's
not a hard sell on that one.
Yeah. So, it's different for everybody. Right. So, and I feel like human nature is, we tend to just be so close-minded to being sold, and our initial reaction is no. I get telemarketing calls every day about cleaning my air conditioner.
Please
or whatever.
Remove me from your list.
I say that all the time, but just be open-minded to it. because, I feel like the more open-minded you are, there's so much growth on the other side of fear, and there's so much growth on the other side of your comfort zone. So a lot of times it's hard to see that or believe that. But if you're just open-minded, I think there could be something that you're missing that you don't know about. So
I think that's great.
Yeah.
It's funny because I still get, even to this day, random recruiting texts or phone calls. I'm like, you guys must have purchased a very old list because I've been self-employed for 5 years now.
They call me and I'm like, I own a staffing company. I'm like, I don't think you can place me.
Take note of the name. Do not ever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're just banging through the list or whatever.
Yeah.
So
listen, maybe they're starting out with their 100 calls a day.
That's right.
Bless their heart. That's
right. Exactly.
You're just one of the pieces of rejection they get to have.
Exactly. So yeah, it's definitely a grind, but I tell people all the time. We were talking about the UCF Invitational.
Yeah.
Meeting the students there, and a lot of times they've either heard about staffing and they have a negative thought process about it, or they've never heard about it. But it's one of those industries you kind of fall into, and you either fall in love with or you hate. Right? You just loathe it. So I think I've obviously fallen in love with it, and I think the reason is that gratifying part of just like finding the perfect person for this candidate that you care about, right? And putting those two together. So
I think that's great.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up.
Yeah.
How can somebody reach out to you if they have any questions, candidate or client?
Yeah. So our website is icaconnects.com, ICACONNECTS.com. And then my email is Brandon, BRANDON @ICAconnects.com. Candidates, clients, if you would like to work with us or want to hear more, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for listening in, and we will catch you on the next episode.